Good evening. We are so glad that you are here tonight to support pastoral training and theological education at Conrad Grebel in order to serve the wider church. Your gift to the Ralph and Eileen Lebold Endowment does just that. I am Susan Schultz-Huxman, president of Conrad Grebel. We have had quite a whirlwind year at Grebel. For starters, as many of you know, Grebel is golden. We've been celebrating all year the 50th anniversary of this remarkable college founded by visionary Mennonites. Grebel opened for business in the 1963-1964 academic year as an affiliate Christian liberal arts college of the University of Waterloo, then just an upstart engineering school. We have celebrated in grand yet modest Mennonite style all year, hosting 50 events to celebrate 50 years. We began in late August of this year with the first of 50 events, a 50th anniversary book launch in the chapel by Grebel's fifth president, John E. Taves, for his new book entitled The Story of Original Sin. Now, I think we all know that story, but knowing John Taves, you also know he had a new twist on the story of original sin, and it gave greater legitimacy for adult baptism. If you haven't read that book, I invite you to get it. We also used that occasion to commemorate the importance of the chapel and the role of faith formation in the life of the college and our abiding mission to seek wisdom, to nurture faith, to pursue peace and justice in service to church and society. Here we are, 11 months later, ready to celebrate the 50th event of our 50 years. And what better way to close the book on our anniversary year than to mark it with the 10th Lebold Endowment Banquet, a fundraiser co-sponsored by Grebel and Mennonite Church Eastern Canada. This well-established fundraiser supports the deeper connection between church and college, between pastoral training and forming and equipping strong leaders for the Mennonite Church here in Ontario and across Canada. In the 10 years the Banquet fundraiser has occurred, Fred tells me we have raised $152,000 just from the proceeds from these dinners. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your presence here tonight on so many levels, but in terms of your financial support to this endowment. I'd like the honorees for this event to stand up and be recognized. Ralph and Eileen Lebold. I'd like to share some reflections that Ralph sent to me a couple of months ago. Ralph never stops thinking about new challenges, new horizons, and new possibilities to grow the church. He writes, I was 5 years into ministry after having completed my seminary education when it dawned on me that there were significant gaps in my preparation for ministry. My degree program focused on gaining knowledge, and there was no attention to my inner personal growth needs, and minimal attention to fostering my spiritual growth. After experiencing a traumatic ministry episode, I began to reevaluate my future as a pastor. After exploring several options, I enrolled in a Master of Theology degree program. This program included half-time academic coursework, while the other half involved serving as chaplain at a general hospital with supervision by trained pastoral supervisors. That year transformed me, Ralph writes, and planted the seeds of a vision for an alternative way to train pastors. My supervisors helped me to discover the importance of a ministry of presence. It is encouraging to note, Ralph continues, that the college's MTS, Master's in Theological Studies program, includes both elements in its curriculum, theory courses, as well as supervised experiences in a congregational setting. With the influx of the first-generation Anabaptist Mennonite congregations, the area church has a new challenge, Ralph writes, as well as an opportunity to team up with the college in moving beyond the formal academic MTS program. The church leader of today is often bivocational, so these people require flexible programming. I am encouraged and challenged to imagine how the area church and the college will partner in this exciting venture that God has placed before us. Thank you, Ralph, for, again, your visionary remarks these many years. Ralph's reflections capture the theme of tonight's Lebold Endowment Banquet, our present future. The idea that we must not just follow the winds of change in our midst, but be prepared to lead that change in the present, grasp our future, even if it means doing pastoral education differently. And we have a very exciting opportunity to do that right now. I'd like to invite David Martin to join me to help introduce a special item of celebration this evening. Our banquet tonight marks a milestone in the history of the Lebold Endowment. So David, if you could share what that good news is.
Thank you, Susan. Susan, this isn't just the 50th event of a 50th anniversary and a 10th banquet. We are celebrating tonight a very significant milestone. Ralph, when you and Eileen made this visionary movement to establish a training fund for church leaders, you did that a number of years ago with a goal of $1 million. Well, if you missed being present at the April annual church gathering for Mennonite Church Eastern Canada, you may not realize that Mennonite Church Eastern Canada has made a commitment of $250,000 from its legacy bequest funds to bring the Ralph and Eileen Lebold Fund to its full $1 million and surpass that $1 million goal. So we're just very pleased to have been able to do that, to bring that original vision to completion at that end. And I want to say a little bit more about how we want to envision that into the future. But for the moment, we simply want to recognize, Susan, the very significant partnership we share with the college around this fund, the commitment to training church leaders, and tonight simply be able to celebrate that wonderful milestone of reaching the $1 million mark. Thank you for that vision, Ralph and Eileen.
Well, we are very thankful for this tremendous gift from MCEC. That generous gift supports both our missions. It strengthens the mission of MCEC to extend the peace of Jesus Christ by forming leaders for the church, and it strengthens the mission of MCEC's Church College, Conrad Grebel, to seek wisdom, nurture faith, and pursue peace and justice in service to our church and society. David, as you know, there is a neat story about the connection between John E. Taves, the 5th president of the college, Ralph Lebold, the 3rd president of the college, and Harold Schmidt, whose estate gift came to MCEC and now to the Lebold Fund. The 5th president of the college, John E. Taves, from Saskatchewan and California, he served here as president from 1996 to 2002, at a time when there was great funding challenges at Grebel. The Ontario government began reducing funding to universities, and the large shortfall simply had to be made up. Taves was the right guy for the challenge because he became a consummate friend-raiser and fundraiser for the Grebel community among the Mennonites here. One of Taves' fundraising initiatives was the establishment of an endowment that would be owned jointly by MCEC and Conrad Grebel, and that would provide explicitly an ongoing funding base for continued training of church leaders in and for the churches of MCEC. The fund, of course, was named the Ralph and Eileen Lebold Endowment as a symbol of remembrance and appreciation for Ralph and Eileen Lebold's bold vision for leadership training in MCEC. And here is where the connection to Harold Schmidt emerges. A committee was formed in 1997 to dream and to deliver on an endowment. Joining Taves on that committee was Dale Bauman, Merv Good, Mary Sheedle, and Harold Schmidt. This group wanted to shoot for the stars and said, let's establish an endowment of $1 million in honor of the Lebolds, and let's see if we can do it in 5 years. Well, they got a good start on the endowment. And here we are today in 2014, 17 years later after that meeting, with the Schmidt Estate gift to MCEC and now to the Grebel Lebold Endowment Fund. We can say it has reached $1 million. How very, very fitting that 17 years after Harold and others dreamed big, the Lebold Endowment would be his and Enid's gift that would push us over the top. Again, I want to thank you, David, and MCEC for this transformational gift in the life of our college. We are truly blessed. Now I'd like to thank our key sponsors for tonight's dinner, and I'd like our 3 key sponsors to stand when I call your name. CLM, that is C.L. Martin from Floridale. I understand that Richard, the owner, and Norma Bauman are here. There they are. Richard, I remember, brought us this wonderful classroom portable during our major construction upheaval, and was well used by many on staff here. Herb Transport, also a sponsor, and Vernon and Viola are here tonight, so appreciate your sponsorship as well. Unifab is our 3rd sponsor. This is a gift from Abe and Lisa Fair from Leamington. They are not here this morning, or this evening, but if you would please join me in thanking our 3 top sponsors. I would very much and I don't want to forget some other very important people and businesses. We have friends and we have supporters who are also on your program and up on the screen. These are very important underwriters for our mission and for our fundraising activities tonight. I'd like to call now on Ken Hall, our professor of music at Conrad Grebel, to lead us in grace.
We're going to sing some familiar words to a familiar tune, but it's not the tune that we usually sing when we sing these words. The words are, praise God from whom all blessings flow. I'll sing it once, you'll recognize the tune right away. Can you hear me all right? Okay. And then we'll immediately sing it together in unison, and then twice more as a round in 4 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you come to the end, please just hold the last note till everyone has One of the things I discovered just a minute ago, among all of the wonderful things that the building program has brought us, is a much larger music office space. Turns out that my key no longer opens the music office, so I don't have either a pitch pipe or a tuning fork. So we're going to be kind of winging this. Would you stand, please? Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
what has really occupied our time in a very happy way, and that is our 50th anniversary celebrations, our 50 events to celebrate 50 years. We have really enjoyed many concerts and lectures and special workshops, picnics, commissioned music and art and video, the awarding of Grebel's first honorary doctorate, exhibits, alumni gatherings, hosting special academic conferences, and on Sunday, we launched Event 49, which was the dedication of our beautiful, functional, and on-budget academic expansion building project, made possible by the Next Chapter campaign. We had well over 400 people enjoy our open house and building tours this past Sunday. Many of you were there and enjoying that special moment with us. All 4 stories and 25,000 square feet for music, community education rooms, new offices, classrooms, a new front entrance, major upgrades to library and archives, and the new Mennonite Savings and Credit Union Center for Peace Advancement. This particular campaign honored the legacy of many Grebel supporters and leaders, past and present, including 3 Grebel presidents with named spaces. The Henry Petkow Seminar Room. Henry was the 6th president of Conrad Grebel, and that room is particularly significant because that's where all our graduate theological studies courses are taught. The Winfield Fretz Seminar Room, that is up in the Center for Peace Advancement, and again honors Winfield's entrepreneurial spirit, and he was also the co-founder of the Mennonite Credit Union. And the Frank and Helen F. Peace Incubator Space, that too is in the Center for Peace Advancement. Frank F. was instrumental in starting peace and conflict studies here and in bringing Project Plowshares to fruition. The Next Chapter campaign brought in $6.3 million from 1,204 donors. Many of you here tonight contributed to our campaign, and we are especially appreciative of that. I have noticed that this is an exceptional culture of giving that we see cultivated at Conrad Grebel in so many people, really since the college's founding. And one of the things that the fundraising literature tells you is that when you're in a campaign year, other kinds of giving goes down, like giving to the annual fund, or giving to the Lebold Endowment, or giving to student scholarships. And that did not happen at Conrad Grebel. We are just enormously thankful for this kind of generosity from the Mennonite community. And in giving to bricks and mortar, you are also giving to enrich people and programs and mission. So the other college update I want to share briefly about are our people and program changes. We graduated our first cohort of the Masters in Peace and Conflict Studies program, 11 students. This is our second graduate program at the college, our first being the MTS, or the Masters in Theological Studies program. So on April 13th, we had 11 MPACS students walk across the stage, joining 10 MTS students and 104 undergraduates at Grebel's special convocation. There we also conferred an honorary doctorate in divinity degree upon the internationally acclaimed Dr. John Paul Lederach of Notre Dame University for his groundbreaking work in peace and justice from a Mennonite perspective. We had some new hires this year that I want to end on because people are, of course, what really makes a place buzz. We hired a new music prof to replace Carol Ann Weaver. He is Dr. Tim Corliss. I think some of you know him, already quite an accomplished composer. He currently is at CMU as a lecturer. He will be arriving on August 1. We hired a new dean of the college who is here tonight. Our new dean replacing Jim Pankratz. He is Dr. Trevor Bechtel. We are so pleased he is with us. He actually comes from this area. Many of you may remember him. Grew up in Kitchener, went to Rockaway, then came to Grebel, then to CMU, then to AMBS, and then to Loyola University in Chicago for his PhD in theology. The last 10 years, he's been at Bluffton University as an associate professor of religion and theology and director of the honors program. So we are absolutely thrilled that Trevor is with us here tonight. We also hired our first director of the Center for Peace Advancement. In fact, we just made this hire last week, so it feels still like hot off the press news. He doesn't begin till September 1, but it is Dr. Paul Heidebrecht from MCC Canada, who is the director in Ottawa. He will also be teaching for Grebel in both the Theological Studies program and the MPACS program. Paul Heidebrecht also was a student here at Grebel and the University of Waterloo, earning a degree in engineering before he went to AMBS to get his theology degree, and then to Marquette University for a degree in ethics and theology. We've also made some transitions. Dr. Jeremy Bergen has now been appointed to direct the MTS program in Jim Pankratz's retirement. And Jeremy, I'd like you to come up and share some developments that are happening in TS. And while he's coming forward, I'd like to acknowledge all of those who teach and provide leadership in the theological studies, the TS program at Grebel. And I'd like you to please stand and remain standing if you are here with us here tonight. Dr. Alicia Batten in New Testament. Dr. Derek Suderman, Old Testament. Dr. Marianne Mellinger, Pastoral Training, Applied Stream. Dr. Troy Osborne, Church History. Dr. John Rempel, TMPC program in Toronto. Ed Jansen, Campus Chaplain. Dean Trevor Bechtel, and CPA Director Paul Heidebrecht. This is quite a supporting cast of theologians and of church professors for our TS program, a very large and well-respected program, not just at Grebel, but the University of Waterloo. I'm also wondering if there are some recent graduates of our TS program that are here tonight that might stand as well and be recognized. Good, wonderful.
I had the privilege of speaking with many of you this past Sunday afternoon at the opening and dedication. I spent much of the afternoon in the 8-Cal seminar room, where, as was already mentioned, much of the theological studies will happen in the future. And as visitors came through that room, they tended to remark on one of three things. And I think these three things say something about the program. The first is the large oval table. Classes in theological studies are held around a large table. Sitting in a circle represents a community of learning in which insights and experiences contribute to the enrichment of all. Our program is modest in size, and so students and faculty get to know each other very well. Formation for theological and ministerial leadership happens in supportive community. But that large table also represents tradition. The table is the same one around which the founding board gathered to establish this college. And over the following 50 years, it is the same one that subsequent boards and college councils and numerous seminar classes have gathered around for conversation, for debate, for disagreement, for working at issues together. And so that table, I think, represents a rootedness in the past, but also a vision for the future. And in theological studies, we are rooted in tradition, in the biblical tradition, in our Anabaptist tradition, but always asking, what do these mean for the contemporary world, for the contemporary church, and for the many expressions of Christianity? Secondly, visitors noticed that we had displayed a series of bound master's theses. We set these out. These were ones that had been written over the last number of years, and a number of you flipped through these.
even if you didn't read them from cover to cover. But people commented on the range of topics: technology and the Holy Spirit, the role of wealthy women disciples in the Gospel of Luke, a theology of fundraising, early Anabaptist Balthasar Krugmeyer's view of the sword. Our program is broad, and we seek to be interdisciplinary, rigorous, and relevant. The research and writing done by our graduates, I think, attests to this. And the third thing that many noticed were the large windows. When you walk into the Pape House seminar room, you notice the large windows that look out onto the residence building, onto Westmount Road, and onto green space. This is a view that is open to the wider world, which I believe also characterizes our program. We have a practical orientation, with many students doing internships in a variety of congregational, chaplaincy, and social services settings. I believe we can and should increase our connections globally and interculturally. And as we continue to develop a certificate program in theological studies, we will expand that outward orientation, taking the classroom to where ministry leaders are in a variety of formats. I've been teaching in this program for 6 years, and I have been the director of this program for 2 months. We have an engaged group of faculty, a dynamic student body, and a number of current students are here with us this evening. Great library resources, excellent student space, much expanded with our recent project, and a very supportive wider community. I am grateful for the commitment to an investment in theological leadership development that's represented by your presence here. Let me ask you to do 3 things. First, continue to support us as you are doing by your presence here tonight. Secondly, avail yourselves of some of our resources. For example, our Pastor's Theology Seminar, this coming year taught by Miriam Fry on the topic of spiritual practices and spiritual directions. Invite one of our faculty members to speak in your congregation. And thirdly, encourage individuals in your congregation to enroll in this program. Certainly those considering pastoral ministry, but also those considering other vocations of ministry and service in a variety of settings. And those at all stages of life interested in personal enrichment. We have students in this program who are 22, 42, 62, and older. And full-time Canadian students typically receive full tuition scholarships. We want to get the word out on that. The Theological Studies program is one that's rooted in tradition, nurtured in a community of learning, academically engaged, and open to the world. Spread the word.
Let me follow up on Jeremy's comments. This evening, our theme is our present future. It might seem a little odd at first, but in MCEC and here at the college, we believe that our present is the future. And one of the key ways that we experience that is the incredible shift that has occurred over the last quarter century in our congregations and who we are as a Mennonite Anabaptist people. You may know that MCEC on a Sunday morning now worships in 12 to 13 different languages and has welcomed many new Canadians into the Mennonite Church and into the Anabaptist theological conviction. We're just very pleased to have that partnership, but that also is changing who we are and what our future are. Those new Canadian leaders need support for leadership development that are different than what we currently have. But we, as Mennonites who've been around here for a while, also want to be able to learn from them. So our vision for the future is that this present intercultural experience will expand and grow into the future. And in fact, we will become an intercultural learning community of faith. And we would like that to be shaped at the leadership level. So this evening, we would like to invite you to help us to be a part of shaping that future and giving it leadership. We think for the future that we need to support our new Canadians. We also need to support our existing pastors from the historic Mennonite background to grow in their continuing education endeavors. And also, we believe that for the future, we will see increasing lay leadership. So we need training for lay leadership. Our vision is that we can put that together into a package, and as we partner as church and college, that we can in fact develop a program around a certificate in church ministry that would meet these varied needs and bring all cultures together at the same learning table. As Jeremy was suggesting, our vision is that doesn't just happen at a base from the college, but partnering with the college, we can make those resources available in our communities, into our geographic dispersals. We can bring those courses to our churches, wherever they are, bring them in formats that are accessible at the non-academic level, and we just want you to be a part of helping us increase and grow our leadership and be a part of a vision for the future that we believe will help the church thrive. So to that end, we have reached our goal, Ralph, and we are celebrating that, Eileen. But tonight we want to tell you that we have a new sense of direction. We have not shut down the Lebold Fund and said it's reached its $1 million goal, we're capping it. In fact, we want to ramp this thing up and in fact turn the Lebold Endowment into something that will serve the needs of the church long-term into the future. And so we want to take this next year to explore the certificate program idea, to develop that into a solid proposal for the future. And tonight I'm announcing that Mennonite Church Eastern Canada has designated $30,000 for a part-time person to develop that proposal for the coming year. And our hope is to be back here next year to say, this is the future that our president is helping us to emerge, and we want you to be a part of that. And so we will need your ongoing support for the Lebold Endowment. We want to use those dollars to support the church ministry certificate program and to grow the church for the future. So the demand for that fund and its need will continue to be there in the future. And tonight, we've reached our $1 million goal, but you can help us celebrate by surpassing that solidly, taking the envelopes on that table and filling them up, and helping us share in that vision for the future. We're excited about that vision. We want you to be a part of the leadership of that vision and to join us. Please, let's work together as college, as constituency, as church, to make our church thrive and grow and adapt and meet the demands of the future that is coming our way. Please join us.
Thank you very much, David, for that new vision and a new day, and recognizing, as Ralph wrote to me two months ago, that these are challenges, but they are also opportunities. And we don't want to be just staying in place. We want to move forward. We have a track record here at Conrad Grebel in how to run certificate programs for continuing education and to meet growing needs with people who have a variety of different kinds of schedules. And so looking forward very much to working with you in bringing that to fruition and, again, embracing the future head on. We are ready, I believe, for dessert. Is that correct? We are not ready for dessert. When we are ready for dessert, I'm going to get a signal, and then we will continue the way in which we did the main course, which is those closest to the dessert tables will go first, and then we will continue through. And I can at least see some of it coming out, and at least one of the choices is pie.
Where did you go then? First in Canada? Okay. And in the US also? What did you have in mind
While we're waiting for dessert, we're going to have have Ralph and Eileen, or at least Eileen, come up here and introduce the Lebold family that is present tonight. So Eileen?
Daughter is Cindy, and I don't think she's here. Ralph's siblings are here. His sister Marie and Claire Jansen from London, Ontario.
Raise your hand. Where are you? Okay. From London, Ontario.
And Ralph's youngest brother, Claire and Gloria Lebold. They were originally from Fort Erie, but they moved closer to their children in Kitchener-Waterloo here. And then our sister-in-law, Karen Lebold.
As you're enjoying your dessert, we'd like to share a few more items with you. 8 or more years ago, I didn't ask Marianne for sure, because we both feel too young for it to be that long ago. When Lawrence Martin resigned from his and retired from his position in leadership training at MCEC, the opportunity arose for, and I can say us at the college at the time and MCEC to collaborate, given the shared enterprise in theological training and leadership preparation that was happening at Conrad Grebel. And so a position was developed that was shared between MCEC and Conrad Grebel, a half-time position, the Grebel portion being funded through proceeds from the Lebold Endowment. And Marianne Nullinger was the person who was appointed to that position, and I can't think of a better person to have fulfilled that dual role of working in the church and in the academy, bridging those two worlds, and leading in training leadership, preparing pastoral leadership in the Masters of Theological Studies program, as well as leadership training more generally, broadly, in the church through programs for lay leaders. And so Marianne has served that role in both respects, preparing for planning, for example, the annual School for Ministers, which is held here at Grebel, the annual event for pastors, chaplains, and congregational leaders, and an assortment of leadership training events that is outlined in a little booklet that we receive each year, and which will be going online this year. So watch for that announcement and that material online. Courses that are offered here at Grebel, as well as seminars otherwise. Marianne has been a pioneer in her own right in pastoral leadership training, having been, together with Muriel Bechtel, one of the visionaries of the Transitioning into Ministry program that has so remarkably assisted in preparing pastors and equipping them and forming them early in their years in ministry. And Marianne helped initiate the Spanish language leadership training program that has for some years now served our Spanish-speaking folks in Sherbrooke, Quebec, and in Toronto, which is taught in Spanish, and on site, so that folks there can benefit from leadership training and pastoral training in their own language and in their own schedules. And the success of that program and inquiries about expanding that became the seeds for the certificate program, which David described to you a few moments ago. So, Marianne, I want to thank you on behalf of MCEC for your ministry in that program and for being that not only bridge builder, but in many ways probably sometimes it felt like you were the bridge with the traffic going back and forth and trying to hold those two worlds together. Marianne is retiring from her role at MCEC at the end of this summer, and thankfully she will be continuing here in the Theological Studies program, where she teaches and mentors and counsels students preparing for ministry. But I invite you to join me in acknowledging and thanking Marianne for her dedicated service to the church.
Well, thank you, Henry, for those kind words. As I've said many times, serving in this position has just been a joy and a privilege. I've a number of things from my background, just and other kind of career placements that I've had, all felt like they came together and just were a good fit for doing this kind of role that I've been in, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So our next part of the program is to welcome Sean East, who was the one graduate who was here. I think, Sean, you were the only one who stood up. But anyway, Sean is going to be sharing a bit of his experience from the MTS program. And I just want to say a little bit about Sean. By way of introduction, he has been pastor of the West Hills Mennonite Fellowship for the past 3.5 years. And as we noted, just this year graduated from Grebel's MTS program. Like many of our students, and particularly our students in ministry, Sean was called to ministry first, and then followed that calling with further graduate study. Growing up, I imagine that ministry was not on Sean's even remotest radar as a vocational calling. But we know from the record of many biblical characters that God often calls unusual people to carry out God's mission in the world. Sean's background is in finance, and he worked for many years as the chief financial officer for a very large North American manufacturing company. He was introduced to the Mennonite Church while a student in residence at Grebel. Sean began the MTS program as a rather quiet student, but ended the program having clearly found his voice and making insightful and lively contributions to class discussions. He's a confident and passionate missional leader, and he brings a deep understanding of the missional church. Sean is married to Jackie, who's here, and they have 3 children, TJ, Daniel, and Rebecca. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Marianne neglected to mention that the final class that I took with her had 2 students, and I was one of them. And so at that point it became rather difficult to hide in terms of making a contribution in the class. I also want to thank Susan, because I think that she came up with a really good slogan tonight that would fit my view of the MTS program: enjoy and listen if you'd like. I knew I was in for quite an experience when I came into the MTS program. I had not been in school for nearly 20 years. And when I was in school last, I was taking math accounting, and you'll be surprised to find out that there were not very many papers required academically in the math accounting program. Marianne actually marked my first paper and was kind enough to write some very nice comments on the back, suggesting that perhaps I figure out how papers should be written in a very polite way. My first week when I was on campus led me to believe that I was going to have an interesting time in the MTS program. The first experience I had was sitting down in a class that Marianne happened to be teaching, introducing myself to the person beside me, who upon learning that I was in pastoral leadership already, looked at me incredulously and said, "How can you preach a sermon if you've never been to seminary?" I followed that experience up by walking to the Dana Porter Library to pick up course notes that are so helpfully there in the copy center. When I was last at the University of Waterloo in the 90s, there was no coffee shop in the Dana Porter Library. There were a lot of other things that were not in the Dana Porter Library, and as I finally found my way to the copy center on the first floor, I walked up to the very nice young man who was manning the desk and told him which notes I needed. At which point he looked at me, looked at the notes, looked at me again and said, "Man, isn't there anyone under 40 who's taking this class?" So I walked into the program perhaps a little reinforced in the insecurities that I was bringing with me. I had no religious training of any kind whatsoever. I was very grateful that Grebel's requirements for entering the MTS program were that I had a 4-year university degree, not that I had actually studied anything relevant to the material at hand before. In my first year, I was shocked to learn things like there are people who don't believe that Moses wrote the book of Genesis. I was shocked to find out that Noah was not very consistent in his account of how many animals were supposed to go on the ark. I was shocked when one of the professors who shall remain nameless, Derek Suderman, told me that I had to go into the library, read through commentaries, and not actually report what they said, but try to explain why I thought they were saying it. But at the end of the day, I learned several things from the MTS program and not what I expected to. I was not taught what the Bible said, but I was empowered to figure out how to read it. I was not told what I should think, but I was given the tools to try to help me think things through myself. And I was not given the answers, but I was helped and trained in how to ask myself and the situations around me the right questions. I can honestly say that just about every one of the 16 courses I took over the course of my degree, I have applied in my ministry setting already. Whether it is a biblical studies course, whether it was a pastoral care course, whether it was a theology course, believe it or not, Jeremy, or whether it was a history course. It enriched my understanding of who I was, it enriched my understanding of who God was, and it enriched my understanding of what my role was. And so I'm thankful for the chance for a 40-year-old accountant with a math degree to be able to be indulged to sit in a religious class and try to figure out what it is that the professor was trying to teach. And perhaps even more importantly, what God was trying to say to me through it. And so I want to thank everybody that put up with me sitting sourly in their classes and not participating. I was telling people at our table today that that is a well-trained habit of mine from sitting in a lecture class of 30 to 400, where I sat as far back in the room as I could, and where my job was to try to make sure the professor didn't know that I was there. And so I thank everybody at the college and everybody that had a role in helping train me and teach me and show me and empower me so that I can try to do the best in the calling that God has laid on my life. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Sean. Do we have that digitally recorded? We have an ambassador for the TS program. Jeremy, you're still looking for people. Let's take that show on the road. Thank you very much. I enjoyed and I listened. Again, thanks so much, Sean. And again, we are very pleased that Marianne is staying on with us in the TS program, even as she drops this one particular part of her job with MCEC. And thanks again, Henry, for bringing that word with Marianne and her service for us.
If you'd like to see and hear and enjoy some more of Sean and other MTS students, There's some video on the Theological Studies website and on the Conrad Grebel site. So avail yourselves of that opportunity and learn a little bit more about the Theological Studies program for your own interest and for that of children, grandchildren, friends, and others whom you might want to encourage to consider some studies in theological studies and perhaps even, who knows, a career change into ministry. Well, it's not everyone who would inspire me to dress this way. Those of you who know me probably are accustomed to seeing me up here in a tie. I dressed this way this evening in honor of Roberson. Roberson was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And one of the reasons I enjoyed meeting him because I had as much trouble pronouncing his last name as most people have pronouncing my last name. Roberson emigrated to Canada as a refugee in 2007. And his family arrived 5 years later. Caris is here this evening with him. Their children, Joel, Devine, Merveille, are a family again, for almost a year and a half now, I believe. Almost 2 years. And one of the joys that Roberson has had recently, something that most of us seem to take for granted, is that he was able to vote for the first time in his life. He became a Canadian citizen recently and was able to vote in the provincial election. Sometimes we need to hear and see from a different perspective to understand the privileges and opportunities that we have. But Roberson in his native country had some of those opportunities as well. He holds several master's degrees, a Master of Divinity and a Master of Theological Studies degree, and was studying for his PhD in ethics and theology when he was compelled to flee his country and come to Canada as a refugee. Since 1988, he's been was a pastor in the Mennonite Brethren Church in Kinshasa, served as conference minister, as bishop in that area for some 44 congregations in a conference about the size of MCEC. He's also a radio and personality star, radio and television personality and star, and found a variety of ways of communicating the gospel and the good news. The story of his coming to Canada itself warrants either an epic novel or a movie. And how he became connected to Hagerman Mennonite Church is nothing short of divine providence. And then being called to serve that congregation as its pastor in an intercultural setting where three groups worship in the same facility, the Markham Chinese Mennonite Church and the Markham Christian Worship Center, a Tamil Christian group, together with the Markham Hagerman Mennonite Church in Markham. Roberson, his accomplishments notwithstanding, is a humble, quiet, and soft-spoken man with a ready smile and a lively sense of humor. He's a man of deep faith, of abiding hope, of boundless love for life and for all people, regardless of who they are. And he is eminently qualified to address us this evening on the theme of being an intercultural learning community. Roberson, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Caris and I are so pleased to be here. It's a mixed feeling of great privilege, but also a big responsibility to speak at this fundraising banquet for the Ralph and Helen Lebold and Dunham. 3 months ago, I was attending the MCEC Transitioning into Ministry program, a spring equipping retreat for pastors new to ministry, when Henry approached me and asked if I could be available to speak and share my story at this banquet. I was surprised and asked him, what does it mean, a banquet at fundraising in a Mennonite context? Banquet was not exactly a new word in my vocabulary. Indeed, I already spoken several times to pastors or businessmen, but in a different context and with different folks. My people in Africa, in DR Congo, but speaking at the legal Endowment. Who is Ralph? And why me? Later on, I sent an email to Miriam saying that my heart is filled with gratitude and thankfulness for their trust in me, and I humbly agreed that I will speak on the theme given to me, and that I will try my best to share the story of our family journey, which I get from a book I'm working on, tentatively titled God's Faithfulness: How I Found My Way Through the Darkness. Story of a Mennonite leader from the south, but now living in the north. And I'm breaking my story into 5 sections. The DR Congo and the Mennonite faith family, being a Christian in the Congo, and my call to ministry. Coming to North America, being separated from my family, and starting a new life in Canada. Reuniting again with my family and returning to ministry. Then we have to dream about our future. But right now, how to embrace the future with hope and faithfulness. Yes, our present future. I understand that this topic focuses on an intercultural learning experience. And I know that we are all learning in a multicultural setting. It is challenging. Challenging for all, both newcomers and those already established. It is fearful and risky to open your community and family, and it's fearful. And how we said, fearful and risky to ask to be included. But this nervousness is, for me, for you, an opportunity for all of us to be open, also to be more vulnerable, to engage and to learn from each other in love, trust, and discernment. My friends, we should embrace this nervousness and our present future with hope and faithfulness. That's the point. Without hope, there can be no future. I believe that God had placed us here for a purpose. We must cast the vision, God's vision of the future, and follow God's vision of the future. Our dream together must reflect God's intent for the community in which we all agree to serve. Our faith tomorrow, our faith for tomorrow should be expressed in love and justice. The church, I think, needs to keep the two connected and learn from both. Engaging Israel people, Joshua said that now fear the Lord and serve him with whole faithfulness. Throw away the God your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of Amorites, and in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. And in the New Testament, Jesus affirmed that. Well done, good and faithful slave. You are faithful over a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Notice the connection between we are faithful, will put you. What more beautiful words did our Lord ever speak? While this precious promise is primarily for eternity, it certainly applies to the present too. And the people I know who have been greatly used in large places have this in common. They were faithful in the little opportunities. And I strongly believe that my faithfulness yesterday will impact my blessing tomorrow. Let me share a little bit about my faith journey, which I found to be a great and positive learning ministry experience. Talking about DR Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the Mennonite faith family, as Henry said, I was born in Kinshasa. Kinshasa is the capital city of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The DR Congo was formed in 1885 and was known as the personal and private property of King Leopold II of Belgium. In 1908, Belgium took over the Free State of Congo and became a Belgian colony until June 1960, when Congo became independent. In 1971, Congo became the Republic of Zaire under Mobutu, the ruthless military dictator who took and held power for 32 years until the rebellion and the first Congo War started in 1996. DR Congo, as you can see, is located in Central Africa with a short Atlantic coastline, 37 kilometers. It's the third largest country in Africa by area and the 12th largest in the world. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is the 19th most populous nation in the world. Congo borders the Central African Republic and South Sudan to the north. In the east, it borders Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, and it's separated from Tanzania by the Lake Tanganyika. To the south, it borders Zambia and Angola, and in the west, it borders the Atlantic Ocean and the Republic of Congo. Maybe most of you were in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is more south of Tanzania, in the south part of Tanzania. So Congo's story since independence has been one of violence and corruption. So the second Congo War, beginning in 1998, devastated the country and is sometimes referred to as the African World War. This war is the world's deadliest conflict since World War II, killing more than 5.4 million people in Africa. Christianity is the majority religion in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, followed by about 90% of the population. The recent figures show that 55% are Roman Catholic and 35% are Protestant, with animists accounting 2.4%. As a part of the global Mennonite family, that is a total of 1.7 million baptized believers in 83 countries. In 2009, the DR Congo has a membership of 220,000 members, with 3 Mennonite conferences. So we have the MB Church, we have the Mennonite Church, and we have the Evangelical Mennonite Church. All are part of the National Congolese Church. Also notice that Africa is just 40% of Mennonite, while North America, US and Canada included, is just under 30%. So Mennonites are already multicultural and getting increasingly multicultural church. Being part of this global family, Pakisa Chimika and Doris Dube commented that our songs and dances will continue to be shaped by how we relate to the rest of the family. The rest of the family, in return, will be shaped by our stories of joy and sorrow. Our journey together will be shaped by our pain and celebrations, by our hope, but also by our dreams. There is, as you can see, a vitality in our churches. Our young people are optimistic and energetic. And in Africa, we like to express our emotions. We like to dance. We like to sing, and it has been a shock. Being an intercultural learning experience in North America, it's not easy. Born in a Christian family, I want to share with you my early life and my call to ministry. My dad was one of the Mennonite pioneers who started the Mennonite presence in the Congo. For almost 10 years, the worship space was in our backyard. And the way they did the church, they built the church, was different. That impressed me because they used gallon drums that were cut and flattened to make the walls. But my Christian education, prayers, and family devotional gathering every Friday night, I think that helped me to develop my own faith experience. I was baptized in 1977 and became first Sunday school teacher, then choir director, and later on supervisor of a youth ministry for Bible study in my community. After several biblical correspondence courses, it became clear in my heart and my mind that I should learn more in the field of church leadership. So then in 1985, the MP Church recommended that I attend seminary for 3 years And in 1988, I became assistant pastor at my home church where I grew up. I served there for about 19 years in charge of evangelism, church life, and mission. God is great. When I think about my ministry in the Congo and how we do ministry in North America, first of all, I learned that I have to sit down and learn about my new context. It has been a very long journey. And you cannot imagine, as a newcomer, those who come in Canada, in North America, trying to find a way how to worship together with you. We need to be open and to listen to each other. Caris and I were married in December 1994. Both are children of pastors. And God has blessed us with 3 beautiful children. Joao, 70 years old. Divine, or Divine, 15 years old. And Merveille, 12 years old. I'm glad that they could join me, as Henry said 2 years ago. As a church leader in Kinshasa, DR Congo, my pastoral role grew. I was presenting religious programs on a local radio and a television. I was also leading the church, as Andrew said, with more than 12,000 members in 44 local churches with 120 pastors. And my own church had about 450 members and 2 services every Sunday. Coming here, it was completely different. And in 2000, it was a wonderful celebration in Kinshasa, in the Mennonite church, to have the first ordination of women pastors called to be ministers. And I'm glad that God used us with our team. I was impressed. One day I went to St. Jacob's, and then I saw one of the pictures of the first Mennonite pastor who was ordained. I said, this is what we did. So I was amazed to see it and to recognize that God is always at work. Talking about ministry, in May 2006, I delivered a sermon in one of the churches in which I denounced the government behavior in the run-up to the national election in DR Congo, denouncing the lack of a vision to fight poverty, corruption, and the intimidation and enrolling kids into army. job, my passion, to lead pastors, to mentor pastors, and to teach. But 2 days later, uniformed men came to that church looking for me. I was not there because it was not my home church. But this man killed the church pastor and his son. In the memorial service, I went just to greet the widow. And then she told me, Roberson, you know, those people who came to my house, they were looking for you. They thought that my husband was you. I couldn't finish the memorial service because of the fear and it was terrible for me to realize that we have the gospel to share, but with all the consequences. My children will never forget the trauma we faced in the city of Kinshasa called Jamaica. It was around 11 o'clock p.m. when military person came to the place where we were living and killed somebody just outside our home. From our bedroom, we could hear the gunshots and the anguished and bleeding voice of the man asking for help before he died. Terrified from this traumatic scene, Caris and I, the next morning, decided not to expose our kids to this kind of spectacles of blood and we fled. Abandoning our home for 2 weeks. And living with relatives. Before finding a place we could live, I asked myself, God, why me? It just no right. Why God people have to be killed? Because of the gospel. Coming to North America, working on my thesis in Christian ethics and HIV/AIDS in African perspective. As a teacher, university chaplain, I came to a conference in US at Calvin Theological Seminary in Michigan. While I was doing my research, after the conference, I received a call from Caris, my wife, that it was not safe for me to go back. It was chaos in the country. No planes were allowed to come in or to leave the country because of the war. The militia army of the opposition and the official national armed forces fired shots into the air and threatened the population. I was proud to exerce my right when I came here. You guys, you are lucky. I'm 48, but I never vote. Talking about our learning together, our ministry learning experience brings courage. For the Congolese people, 2006 was a pivotal year. The first democratic election since the country's independence from Belgium. It was maybe the largest and most complex election process ever supported by the UN. We hoped for a consolidation of the democratic process. We hoped for the establishment of new institutions in the Congo, the promotion of national reconciliation and good governance, with a focus on managing natural resources and fighting corruption, and the promotion of economic development and the reconstruction of the country. But after the 2 rounds of polling, the results were unfortunately not respected by the contenders. Today, there is no real peace in DR Congo. What is happening now is not peace, but instead the tension across the country. The rather unexpected result of that general election of 2006 have thrown the Congolese people and Congolese experts into intellectual, diplomatic, and political limbo, leaving them to wonder what comes next. As I said, I was in the US doing my research. I brought with me 3 dissertations of my students, but it was not possible for me to go. I miss my church. I miss my students. I miss my people. So I felt stuck, like I was facing a wall. I kept a low profile after the conference in US. But being a French speaking, I decided to go to the Canadian border in Windsor, Ontario. And there I applied for refugee status. I didn't know that it would be a cycle of struggles. That began a long, difficult period of separation from my family and adjustment to a new country, a new language, culture, and climate. When I came to Canada in April 2007, I had high expectation for myself and my host country. But it was a utopia and an empty illusion. I rapidly learned that I have to sit down and be born again. I needed Canadian experience before I could envision and realize my dream. If I had even any right to dream dreams. first shock of my learning experience in Canada. How do I communicate my needs? And how do I interact with people around me? Coming from the Congo, speaking French, knowing nothing about English. I studied English many years ago in the university, and I didn't practice. But when I crossed the border, they asked me, "Where are you going?" I knew the map. I say, "Canada, Ontario." I didn't know that in Ontario they speak English, not French. Finding an address was a problem. A place to live. I was accepted in a shelter. A Mennonite pastor, a leader from Africa, living in a shelter for about 3 months in Toronto. The third learning experience in this intercultural ministry setting, finding my faith family. The second Sunday I was in Canada, I walked about 1.5 hours to find a Mennonite church. I went online. I saw where I was living, Sherbourne and Parliament in downtown Toronto. And then I realized that Toronto United Mennonite Church, Tamsi, was in the east of Toronto. I went there, that's where I met the first Mennonite of North America. It was Gary and Lydia. But they were leaving the church because it was their last day of ministry. Fourth learning experience. Get Canadian experience. From Tamsi, I met Tim Schmeicher, the Toronto Regional Representative of MCC. He referred me to Global Closet, the MCC thrift shop at Dunham, to get Canadian experience and to do my volunteer work. There, my task was to clean up garbage, mop floor. In addition to the volunteer work, I had 12 hours a month of pay work, $10 per hour as a truck driver assistant. After 3 months of signing a contract with MCC, that project was handed with a thank you potluck for all volunteers. And then I say, why did they send me here where I cannot work anymore? It was difficult for me to understand God's will. The fifth learning experience, find a possible permanent job. This is where I learn about networking in Canadian context. But in the meantime, I had to work on my language skill. ESL. I was referred to Canadian Center for Victims of Torture in Toronto at Jarvis Street to learn computer training and English as a second language, even though English isn't my second language because it was my fifth. But I have to learn ESR, English as a second language. Through networking, I got the position of merchandiser at Shoppers Drug Mart in Toronto, a night shift job. In my entire life, I never worked at night to gain my life. I was a pastor, I was a teacher, I was leading the church. I found this job very difficult. It left me very tired and impossible for me to read even one Bible verse without falling in sleep. I lose my mind, couldn't have appetite, and I became so tired. I lost my weight. I decided to quit that job. At the shelter where I was living, people were impressed by my behavior. One day, I was approached by the shelter's manager who asked me, "Who are you, Roberson? Because people are talking about you." I told him, I said, "I'm a Christian. I'm a Mennonite." He said, "Mennonite? You know, I came from Jamaica. My wife, she is from Kitchener, Waterloo area. I know Mennonite people. When I came to this country many years ago, they had me. And I would like to connect with some of my friends." Right away, took the phone, he called Andrew and Joanna Rissomato. Next week, Andy came to meet with me, talking with me. When I was talking about my life, what I was doing back in the Congo, he said, Are you a pastor?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You know, I cannot believe it. A Mennonite pastor living in a shelter here in Canada, in North America." We were crying together with Henry. He was coming from Stouffville, north of Markham, to downtown Toronto to give me a ride so that I could attend the worship service at 11 o'clock a.m. After working all night from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning at Dr. Druckmann's. It was finally at Endowment that I was able to tell my story. And I was finally able to be here. I was just looking for someone to listen to me, to hear my story. And with God's providence, I got a day shift job at Rouge River Farms, a sweet corn producer. Again, my task was peeling corn, cleaning garbage, greasing belts and bearings, making boxes, and driving forklift. I never drove tractor, but I took positively my Canadian experience. I then moved to Markham, Stouffville area with my new Canadian parents, my host family. This is where I learned about Canadian culture. This is where I learned about foods such rhubarb, potato chips, applesauce, and I was asking Susan, I said, this sauce we had in the supper here, yes, that was one of the wonderful I learned here. In July 2007, I began attending Endowment Mennonite Church. I initially spent some time in observing, learning my new context. And in 2008, I decided to become Endowment member. I took my membership. In 2009, I became a lay of worship. And since Endowment was without pastor, it was decided that I could preach once or twice a month, sometimes leading Sunday school. And after I became a member, I represented Endowment as a Endowment delegate to MCEC. And after that, MCEC area church delegated to MC Canada in 2010 and 11 in Calgary and in Waterloo. So, being in the Mennonite gathering, that was a very, very special learning experience again. But back to ministry, I was reunited with my family, as I said, in February 2012. Kids, they grew up and they changed dramatically. I received the support of the church. They changed. I have to learn who they are. Being separated with them for more than 5 years, and they have to learn who I became, a different person. But in 2012, the Endowment Search Committee and I came to the conviction that God was calling me to be Endowment pastor. So the congregation strongly endorsed the search committee recommendation, and on December 2012, I was installed as a Endowment pastor. And the church decided to give me a set of commentary, a Mennonite commentary, so that they will make sure so that I will follow the Mennonite Believers Church Bible commentary. I'm pleased with my library I got. What I've learned so far in my new context experience. My friends, our Mennonite churches and our society are increasingly diverse and multicultural. How do we use this as the strength God's intent? As I said earlier, in our nervousness is an opportunity. And our 3 congregations experience in Markham is a microscope of what we can learn each other. One of the the ways we could deal with our nervousness is to listen. Secondly, to collaborate. And third, to dream together. Yes, we must listen carefully to each other. We have different expectations. We must tell our stories. I did not feel accepted in Canada until I found a place where I could openly share with confidence my story, and where I could be also feel that I'm here, people are listening to me. We must be aware that there will be bumps in our journey. We have different backgrounds, cultures, as we came from different settings and background, so on. In terms of authority, as a pastor, as a minister, I understand that the office is not just a concept, not just a person. In African tradition, the office of pastor must be shared as we share leadership together in the village. We're not honoring the person, but the office. And we share leadership in a team. As in any society, a particular person may receive only a limited share of authority according to the circumstances and the need for it exercised. Herdeman, when I'm a pastor, has many leaders, and the pastor role is not always the same. As a shepherd, the minister leads and offers care and nurture to others. The Bible said, whoever wants to be a leader amongst you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must become your slave. As a pastor, I'm willing to continue to facilitate the development and implementation of a vision and mission. Our goal is to work together. Listening includes my first pastoral review. In the Congo, I was there as a leader doing the review for others. Coming to North America, I have to sit and the people have to ask me questions about my review. So the first year review process was a new experience for me. But I was lucky that the review for me was an affirmation of my ministry. And this is where I learned about my strength and growth area of my ministry from another perspective. In my context at Hergeman, listening to each other has implications for all three congregations. As you hear, we share our facilities together with Hergeman Mennonite Church, the Chinese church, but also with the Tamil group, people from Sri Lanka. We have joint services and activities such parenting workshop, where members have to share their story and their experiences. It was great for me to be part of those activities together with them. For our present future, we should collaborate with each other. my first service leading baptism was different. A new learning experience in Canada. Always I did immersion. But when I came here, I used to work and learn about doing ministry, baptism, but by pouring. And the first baptism, two of my kids supposed to be baptized. And we have to do it by sprinkling. Karist, my wife, told me, how you will do it? I said, well, we have to share leadership, and I will ask the deacons to help me to do it. And that works very well with the help of my friend, co-pastor, the pastor of the Chinese church, because we share Sunday school together. The Chinese kids, they don't like to pray, to worship at the Chinese church, but they like to come to our service in English. They don't feel comfortable to worship in Mandarin or Cantonese. Can you believe it? Being called to ministry, I have to work with my terrible English and do ministry in English. And my first memorial service was just disgusting. But I was lucky that Gary and Lydia, they came, offered a coaching role for me through this. In fact, it was my first time to see a memorial service without a body, nobody there. It was a cremation. In Africa, we don't have a cremation. How to do ministry with the cremation? I need to see the body. And do ministry, organize the service. It was different here. I have to work with the family. But in Africa, the pastor handles everything. Family may or not be involved because the pastor knows everything. But here you have to be aware, you have to be careful when you plan a memorial service. A new learning experience. But I was lucky that with the team program transitioning into ministry, I found a safe place when I needed it. David, Rebecca, and my peers in my team, we worked together studying different cases of our ministry settings. That's where I learned about my abilities in ministry setting. I think we can dream for our present future. Now, in Markham, we are considering building together, doing a church development plan. We all agree that our church surrounding demographic and communities are developing in a fast mode, and that our church development project should be able to meet the youth needs. The needs of our present, but also the needs of our community for the future. I know our dream, my friend, might not be popular or may not be easier, but God's blessing is upon us. And we should follow God's vision. I strongly believe that the church should remain a sanctuary offering healing and hope for the families. I would love to be in a church family where we recognize the principle of unity in diversity and where our differences are respected. My dream, not just for tomorrow, but right now, is to share with you that we must all learn new capacity of listening to God's Spirit and meet our neighbors' needs, working together to achieve the effective Great Commission, being transformed by God's love, making disciples for Christ. We need to be patient with our dreaming. These dreams are just started, and we are all learners on this journey. Our situation requires a cultivation of a new leadership capacity of trusting each other in faith and in love. We cannot become what we need to be tomorrow, remaining what we are today. The present future of the church involves our readiness to change. There can be no tomorrow without significant change today. But we should find together what might be changed. Because when any organization decides it will seek to save its life by building walls against change, that organization is destined to lose its life and its vitality. After 19 years of being called as a Mennonite pastor in Kinshasa in Africa, I've learned that where God leads us to serve and gives us gift to serve, He always provides opportunity to serve. We are all in this mystical journey. Today, let us speak the language of hope without fear, believing that the Spirit of God is leading us as we walk together in faith, following God's vision for the future, extending the peace of Jesus, making disciples, training leaders for the growing of the kingdom. I recall what my dad told me. He passed away 3 years ago. Being in North America with my status in that time, I was not able to attend my dad's memorial service. But he told me, Roberson, listen more than you talk. Be open to other person's view. And when he differs, be gracious in your response. Does something need to be done? Take the initiative and do it like a faithful servant. I trust in God that our present future involve our commitments together. May God bless you. Amen.
Thank you so much, Roberson, for your enriching, powerful story. Frightening, tragic, and at the end, incredibly courageous, with perseverance lessons for us all. Thank you for helping us tonight and in the future dream our present future. And especially thank you for being such a wonderful storyteller and master teacher for all of us at the Lebold Banquet this evening. Let's thank Roberson again. providence in our midst. This concludes our program tonight. I want to thank you all again for coming out. This is a wonderful attendance. I want to also thank again our sponsors and partners and friends. You have a little placard on your table. And remind you that if you'd like to continue contributing to the Ralph and Eileen Lebold Endowment Fund, we have made that easy for you on the table with a yellow form. There's also some interesting information here about planned giving and estate giving. Many of you have included the Lebold Endowment and Conrad Grebel in your will and estate planning. We make that easy for you, and if you'd like some more information, I know Fred Martin here, our Director of Development, can visit with you. But again, a very lovely evening. We thank again our hosts, Ralph and Eileen Lebold, for this remarkable journey of pastoral education representing and bridging MCEC and Conrad Grebel University College. So thanks again for coming, and have a very good night.